The third example is the Method Soap Company. And this story comes from The Method, which is the book written by the two co-founders about how they started their company and how they built their corporate culture. But before we jump into the culture, I got to talk about the preface of this book. It is the story of the struggle from the idea of the Method Soap Company, the idea of making green household cleaning products, through a company that's up and running selling these products. That is worth the price of this book. If you're an entrepreneur, you've never done this before, and you really want to hear what it's like, go grab a copy of The Method, read the preface, leave the rest for later. Chapter 1 of the book talks about their corporate culture. And it talks about the fact that they had built a company of 30 or 40 employees before they ever thought about culture. And they had to take a step back at that point in time and say, wait. It's not working the way we want to. We had a corporate culture in mind, but we forgot to tell the employees about it. And now it's going the wrong way. So what they did do by the time they got to 30 or so employees is they had never hired anybody for HR, which is a rare thing to happen. Usually you need someone around 20 or 25 people to handle all the ins and outs of human resources, hiring and firing and so forth of workers. Well, they hadn't done that. And so what they decided to do at this point was, instead of jumping in and hiring an HR person, they decided to create a ministry of culture. Right? They decided to invite any employees that would like to be part of it to have a conversation about what culture they should create at Method Soap. So what's really interesting about this is it wasn't the two founders who came up ahead of time and said, this shall be the culture. They let the early employees define the culture themselves. Furthermore, what they realized was that when you have a great corporate culture, nobody ever talks about it. Right? Nobody ever even notices that it exists. It becomes invisible. It's only when the culture is not working that people start complaining about it. Start saying, this doesn't work, this thing over here doesn't work. I wish it were done differently. Right? So again, if you take the time now to just think about what culture you want, well, hopefully you'll have one of these great invisible cultures later. All right, so what did the Ministry of Culture do? Well, the first thing they did is they sat down and they decided that they were going to create the 5 corporate values of Method Soap. Talked about it for a day or so, and they came up with these 5. 1, keep Method weird. Well, that might sound weird to you, but this is a company that is competing against some humongous competitors. This is a company that they say only has 5 competitors. The first 2 are P&G and Unilever. Those are 2 of the largest companies in the world, 2 of the largest advertisers in the world. Companies that sell products to nearly every household in the world. And that's their competition. So they can't do it by just having a product that's slightly better. They can only really compete there by having something that's out of the box, that's a purple cow, that is something different that people will talk about. And in order to do that, they have a culture of being weird, of being out of the box. Secondly, they say, what would MacGyver do? If you don't remember MacGyver, it was a TV series from, I believe, the 80s. And it was all about this guy who could make solutions out of little household pieces. Right? He could make a solution. If he needed to blow up a bridge, he could do so with a paperclip and a toothpick, right? If he was really pressed. Right? So what that really means is, how do you solve the problem with the least amount of technology possible? How do you solve the problem with whatever you have on hand instead of inventing something new? That's what would MacGyver do mean. Thirdly, again, they have to be innovative. And so inside their corporate culture, they say, innovate, don't imitate. Everything that Method Soap does needs to be something that no one's seen before. Fourth is, off the shelf, be collaborative. And fifth is care like crazy, right? Put the customer first and foremost, and we'll see this show up one more time in chapter 2. Now, what this group did not do was simply make a list of bullets and put it up on the wall. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a Fortune 500 company, elevator doors have opened, and there is a bullet list of corporate culture, right? It really doesn't work that way. So what the Ministry of Culture did at Method Soap was create lots of different things that would have this culture on it, such as playing cards, So this is a picture of the Keep Method Weird playing card. And on the back, it talks about some ways of doing it. It's kind of like if you go back to the corporate essence exercise, you don't throw away all those other words. Well, I'll bet you that they didn't throw away all their other ideas either. That one of the core ideas within Method's culture is keep Method weird, and within it are things like embrace the difference and create the fun and so forth. So they kept those phrases and they threw them on the back of the card. And so they're playing cards and posters and all sorts of different pieces around that make sure that everyone within the Method organization understands all 5 pieces of the Method culture. Those 5 points are not the whole corporate culture at Method Soap. There's a couple rules they go by as well. One of those rules is how to hire the right people. What they think of is, would you want to sit next to this person for 5 hours on a transcontinental airline flight? Right? Seems like a really simple rule, but keep in mind that this employee that you're going to bring into the company, you're going to see them every day. You're going to work with them nearly every day, and you're probably going to see this person and spend more hours with this person than your kids or your spouse at home, right? Or your roommates, whoever you live with at home. Right? So at a minimum, would you want to be sitting buckled in next to this person for 5 hours? This reminds me of another anecdote from another book. It's The Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki. He was there at Apple back in the days of the Mac. And he said the rule was, if you saw someone across the way, like you're at the mall and they're 20 or 30 feet away, right? You're not about to pass them, but you could, make a quick turn, walk for a minute, and get close enough to chit chat with them. Would you want to go do that for this person you're about to hire? Would you take the effort of going and walking across a very large room to talk to this hire? Or, I don't have to, I'm not going to, I don't really like this person enough to go do that, and I'll go on with my life. Right? If they're not worth walking across the room for, if they're not worth sitting next to for 5 hours on the flight, don't hire them. Right? They're probably not the right people for your company. They're probably, for some reason, not a great corporate fit. Now, at Method Soap, they take this one step further. Right? They don't just do the standard interview process. They also give every potential employee homework. And that homework consists of 3 parts. 1, a strategic question, right? Something that talks about the big long-term vision of Method Soap and asks them to try and solve a problem. 2, a tactical question, something a little closer to home, a little shorter term, right? We're about to launch this product. What should we do? What small steps should we do to get this product into market? And 3rd, and most importantly, how would you keep Method weird? And again, remember, that's the first and foremost line in their corporate culture is keep Method weird. And so here's a way, right, to give people time to think about it. Not to just throw it on them in the middle of the interview and see what comes to mind first, but let them actually think for perhaps an hour or 2 at home to truly get to the bottom of that key corporate culture. How would they keep Method weird so you can see whether or not they're innovative and creative and whatnot? Again, Method is supposed to be and aims to be a very innovative company. They want every employee to be creative, not just a few small people, not just a handful of employees. And lastly, Method tries to make sure that everyone knows what's going on in the company by having morning huddles. They have a Monday morning huddle every Monday. And it wasn't clear in the book whether this was an all-hands meeting or small groups. That's not the important part. The important part is that they make sure that they meet every Monday, and that Monday morning huddle does not include only the goals of the week and the status from last week and so forth. But most importantly, that huddle includes, what did you do over the weekend? They let everybody have a chance to talk about what they did over the weekend. Now, I embraced this and used this at my accelerator called Fledge. And I found it was incredibly useful. And it does something that's really subtle and non-obvious, right? So if you just meet and have your normal status meetings, well, then everybody might know what's going on at work. But every employee has something going on at home too, right? And usually the corporate culture, you're supposed to leave your stuff at home, right? In reality, the home life, the stresses and struggles from home, well, they seep into work too. So here's a chance to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Monday Morning Huddle, what did you do over the weekend? Well, one thing it lets you do is it lets you find out far more about the rest of your employees and coworkers. You get to find out what they do when they're not at work. Often you might get that at lunch or after work at drinks. But here's a way for everyone to understand the differences of everyone on the team. Right? And again, I've seen this firsthand, and you just discover amazing talents and amazing interests that you would never get to otherwise. And the second piece, even more important, is that everybody becomes a person. So in the standard corporate culture, you are the marketing person or the accountant, right? You have a title, you have a role to play based around business, right? But as soon as you start to let in, well, this person's a biker, this person does gardening or farming, or this person has 8 kids. I didn't know they had 8 kids. Well, now they become a person, a rounded individual, and you have far more things to talk about, right? You start to get along with people much better. It works really well, and it's really simple to do. And thirdly, right, I think I said 2, but thirdly, it adds one more piece that's really important. It makes a distinction between the days of the week when you're doing work and the weekend when you're not supposed to be doing work, right? It lets, especially when the bosses also chime in on this, it lets them set a stage of work-life balance. It lets them show their employees that, no, I didn't work all weekend. I had 2 days off. I spent the time with the kids. I spent the time doing this hobby and so forth, right? And so it sets a tone of having both a work life and a non-work life, a life, right? And as soon as you set that tone, the employees now understand that, yeah, I have all these things to do. Yes, I could work all weekend, but you know what? On Monday morning, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tell them something I did that was fun. And even if, it does happen, there are time crunches, and sometimes all the answers from everyone on the team was, here's what I did for work over the weekend. This is a great opportunity to say, yeah, but you know what? We shouldn't be doing that every weekend. What are you going to do next weekend? What are your plans for next weekend? I hear the weather's going to be great. Now, the rest of the book goes way beyond corporate culture, but there's a few really good tidbits in there that I want to share with you. So let's jump to chapter 2. This talks about the differences between customers and advocates. And for Method Soap, this is a very important distinction, right? Their competition is P&G, Unilever, Colgate-Palmolive. Right? Every American household is using the products from their competition. This is exactly the same problem as fizzy sugared water in a red can, except in this case, it's laundry soap, it's soap for washing dishes, it's liquid soap for washing your hands, right? But other than that, same problem. So how on earth does Method Soap tackle P&G? Well, they do it by not worrying about customers buying their products. They worry about creating advocates who love their products. And it's a subtle distinction, but it's really, again, along that same line as Seth Godin's Purple Cows. What can you do that is so amazing and so great that people, your customers, will talk about it to other people? Right? How do you get them to do the advertising word of mouth, in a word of mouth style for you? Right? And that's really what Method Soap is aiming to do. And they talk about it in the book in terms of the pyramid, where normally there's a large number of purchasers down to a small number of advocates. And what they're trying to do, what they spend their time doing, is marketing to try and create more advocates. And yeah, the purchasers will be there, but that'll be the smaller amount for them. That's how they think they're going to win this market, and so far, so good. So it doesn't hurt that Method Soap is also a really green company. One of the core fundamental ideas behind the company was that none of the chemicals in any of their products should come from other than a plant. Right? A growing green plant, not a factory. All right, and in addition to this, they put it in the most beautiful package of any company in that space, in the consumer packaged goods space. It's amazing. They look at perfume bottles and bring those over to liquid soap bottles for washing your dishes. Well, that design ethos is what they talk about in chapter 7. For them, that design ethos is really important. It's what sets them apart from P&G and Colgate and so forth. And to get to that design ethos, that's why they have to have employees that think differently, that are thinking about weirdness and change. And what's also wrapped within their thoughts of this design ethos is the Toyota production model, what's called the Kaizen model of small continuous improvements. Right? What they realize as a small company is that their only advantage against the big giant competition is that they can move quicker, that they can iterate much more quickly. This is exactly the same as the lean startup philosophy we saw many lessons ago. Nonetheless, they reiterate it here in the case of competition. The only way they can stay ahead of their competition is to iterate quickly, be different, and so forth. And what they find in using design as a core ethos is that the design becomes the advertisement. And I'll tell you at least one little anecdote. I didn't know about this company until I saw a picture of one of these soap dispensers down in the subway tunnel. I saw it, I said, wow, that's amazing, I gotta have that. Right? I knew it was a soap dispenser. I didn't even know it was green. I didn't know it was good for me or whatnot. I just saw that it was way better than that other brand soap dispenser that just looked like, somebody right out of school had been asked to make one as quickly as possible. At Method Soap, every product is fully designed and beautiful. And we've seen this from other companies like Apple. And we can see that when you put design all the way through everything of your product, not just the layer on the outside, but well designed from beginning to end, well designed to work great for customers, then customers will love the products, and not only love them to the point they'll buy them, love them to the point where they'll talk about them to others. And if you can do that, then you can build a really big successful company.